We are live. Hi, guys. How are you? So today is December 17th, and we're in chapter 3 of Sanhedrin, which has just become a discussion about gambling and gamblers. Okay? So just to do a quick little bit of chazara, of review of where we were, Mishnah said these are the ones who are pasul, these are the ones who are not eligible for being witnesses in a court of law, and by extension, of course, judges.
They have relevant testimony.
Their relevant testimony is irrelevant if they are not a kosher witness. The police and the judge and whoever else cannot use their testimony in court. Okay? So in the American system, it's just an assumption. You can take the worst guy in the world, who worked for the worst people in the world, and if you can turn him and have him turn state's evidence and incentivize him, you can say, we won't prosecute you, or you'll get a lighter jail sentence, or we'll take the death penalty off the table, or whatever it is. The prosecutors cut deals with bad guys all the time, and then they put the bad guy on the witness stand, and the jury, or if it's some civil procedure without a jury, the judge has to determine. It's up to them to determine whether they think the person is credible, and then they themselves determine if they're going to accept that testimony. There's no rule that a convicted felon is not believable in court. So, it would be reasonable that if a person had committed perjury in the past, that should get brought up in a court proceeding, and nobody should believe the person because they're willing to perjure themselves under oath, right? But there's no rule against it, and if the prosecutor wishes to put a perjurer or a thief or a murderer or whoever on the stand to give testimony under oath, it's always permissible. That is not the case in the rabbinic system. The rabbinic system is, if you are someone who breaks Torah law, especially for a living, right, but really on any level, that there's no reason to believe that you have the fear of God necessary to tell the truth under oath, that you might have any other consideration that you would consider more important than the oath that you swore in the name of God. So if you have no fear of God to stop yourself from thieving, then why would you have fear of God to stop you from lying? So you're inadmissible. Crazy, right, Stuart?
Well,
it's a different system for sure.
yes,
Right?
yes.
Where would the narcotics division be
Right.
if they were never allowed to receive testimony from thieves? Right? They would never make a case. Now, I just had a little jump back in my mind to like Beretta, Starsky and Hutch in those days. What was Beretta's informant's name? It was like Squiggy or something.
What do you call it?
I didn't watch that
No,
show.
this I can answer at least partially. In Starsky and Hutch, it was Huggy Bear.
Huggy Bear. That's right, Huggy Bear. That's the guy I was thinking of.
We all had wonderful street snitches.
You can go to this one guy and he can turn over the whole neighborhood at any time. Okay, so for those on, no, that is not coffee. Ugh.
What'd you do? Oh, then you should stay with the decaf tea, which is
No.
the choice.
Well, what was brewed over there looks like decaf tea.
Oh.
It's brown water. It's very light brown water.
Still wish you had a Coca-Cola with you.
Yeah, okay. I'm okay. I'm going to have brownie. All right, so the Mishnah goes like this. Elon Psulim, these are the ones who are ineligible for testimony. Mesachek B'Kubiyah, the dice player. Malvei B'Ribit, the loaner on interest, which is forbidden by Torah law. Mafrechei Yonim, pigeon flowers. Sochrei Shvi'it, the sellers of forbidden sabbatical year produce. Amar Rabbi Shimon, Batchila Ayu Korinotan Ofse Shvi'it. Rabbi Shimon comments on that last one and says they used to call them Shvi'it gatherers, but from the time Mishirabahan from the time that the oppressors became more numerous, which means the time the oppressors became more numerous means really the tax collectors were many, and the burden on the people to produce the taxes they owed in the sabbatical year, which Rome didn't care it was a sabbatical year, so they had to gather to pay their taxes. So it's no longer Osvei Shvi'it, now it's just Sochei Shvi'it, the people who gather and then sell at market. They're still clearly breaking Torah law. They're not forced to do that, so they are in this category of people doing bad things. And Amar Rabbi Yehuda comes in and comments, presumably on one of the earlier cases, Ematai, in what case are they not eligible? Bizman she'ein lahem omanut elahu, only in a time when they don't have some form of livelihood or trade. Aval yesh lahem omanut shalohi ksherin. If they have any kind of support, so any kind of livelihood, some kind of honest profession, then they are believable in court. And we're going to take that and apply it to the dice player, and we're going to take that and apply it to the pigeon flyer in the Gemara ahead, because those two are both gambling cases.
Pigeon flyer means what? Pigeon races?
Pigeon races. You have homing pigeons, you let them loose at the other side of the field, the first one into the,
You compared it to what, greyhound racing?
it's like greyhound races, right?
All right, what page are we on? I'm sorry.
So we're on, that was on 24B3. 24B3. And just to spin through really quickly what happened, we had the Gemara is going to give us another tzricha eventually, where you're going to need this and that. And the this and that are going to be the dice player and the pigeon flyer. Like if they're both gambling, why do you need two gambling cases? So they must be different. And you're going to have, like we had in the last Mishnah, a difference of opinion between two rabbis, and you have to figure out if their difference of opinion applies to both cases. And to make a tzricha, it means that both rabbis need both cases to make the points that they believe in halachically. Okay? So now we're going to go through those very quickly. Rami Bar Chama comes in and he says, Mishum tahav asmachta ve'asmachta lakanya. He says, the reason, and we're going to say it's the dice player for now, the reason the dice player is not a kosher witness is because he's a thief. How do I know he's a thief? Because gambling with dice is an asmachta financial arrangement. It's a financial arrangement based on an unknown condition. And you cannot enter into a financial arrangement based on an unknown condition.
Meaning you can rig the game?
Well, you just don't know if it's going to be a 7 or an 11 or something else, right? So at the time that you put your money in, there's a condition there that hasn't been fulfilled. So you need to know all the conditions of the sale if you are to agree to the sale. You don't have enough information to make an informed legal agreement that is financial in nature to allow someone else to take your money and for you to get whatever product you're supposed to get back, right? So since you don't know the conditions when you put your money down, it is inherently a form of theft if the other person takes your money. That's Rami Bar Chama. Not that he says gambling is evil, he says asmachta financial arrangements are wrong. So any financial arrangement based on an unknown variable, doesn't have to be dice, it can be where the stock market is, right? I will sell you my business as long as the value of my stock holdings is X, right? But you have no way to know what the value of your stock holdings will be. So that, you can't do that. You could say, I will sell you my business when my stock holdings reach X. That's fine. But you can't say, I'm going to sell it on Tuesday as long as it's X.
Anyone who invests in the stock market, how would they think of it now? Because it's still gambling. You still don't know. Well, I think you said.
No, it's not gambling. You can invest. Investments are investments in businesses. There are real businesses underneath them, and you're investing in them.
You purchase a stock. The stock can go up in value or down in value.
But it goes up and down based on non-random factors. Just because you're not smart enough to figure it out doesn't mean it's random, right? Everything that happens in the stock market happens as a result of human activity. Even if there's an earthquake that destroys the factory, human activity put the factory there, human activity insured or didn't insure it, like the insurance industry is a better example, because the whole actuarial table is gambling. my money every month until I'm 65, after which point I get nothing if I die, because they're gambling that I won't die before I'm 65. So that all that money that I give them is theirs for free, right? And for the times that they gamble wrong, they're investing all that money that the healthy people are giving them, and they'll pay off the few poor guys who died young, right? That's gambling. There's all kinds of modern financial contrivances that we could say it's an asmachta, right? I don't think we want to go down that road, right? Because there's some halachic questions that you say, you're not really asking me that, are you? Because if you're really asking me that, then you have to be bound by the halachic answer. My favorite is Hinduism idolatry? You're not really asking me that, right? I know you're not asking me that. No, you're not asking me that.
I would ask a question.
Because the outcomes, if it is, are not things that we want to be engaged in.
You don't want to ask a question that you.
Innocent
you don't
until
want-
proven
you don't
guilty.
want- You don't want the possible outcome that it could be.
Well, you have to destroy all their stuff. If they're doing it in Israel, you kill them. You have to excommunicate anyone who has business dealings with them, and you can't benefit from them in any way whatsoever. So let's not do that, right? Don't ask me that question. Because right now, it's I don't know. I'm not worried about it. But once I really drill down on it and I give a halachic answer, now you have a halachic answer. All right, so in this case, it's an asmachta. Rabbi Bar Chama says it's an asmachta, and that's why it doesn't work. It's not legal, and if he's been taking money that way, he's a thief, and therefore he's not a kosher witness. That's his point. I know that there's only one sentence there in the Gemara, and I just had to say 7 things to make it make any sense, but that's okay. Rav Sheshes comes in, and Rav Sheshes, because he's here, we assume he doesn't think it's an asmachta, or he doesn't think an asmachta would forbid him. One of the two, I have no idea. But he says, Kol ki hai gavna lav asmachtahi. He says, none of these people are asmachtas. The dice player, the shvi'it, the pigeon flyer, none of these people are asmachta relationships. Rather, ella lefisha ein asukim b'yishavo she'olam. So the dice player, the reason he's not kosher is because he's not a productive member of society. He doesn't have a job. He's not contributing to the social wheel, to use older English language. Wheel, W-E-A-L, the social wheel. Okay? So he's not a productive member of society. So if you're a parasite or a ne'er-do-well, then you can't testify in court. Now that's an interesting sociological statement, right? If we wanted to talk about society and people on the fringes of society and whether the court system is really open to all humanity in the image of God, or whether it's an elitist system based on their own validations of their norms of what it means to be a productive member of society, we could run down that road, but it's not what Monday Talmud is about, right? But it's a very interesting insight into society to say someone who is on the periphery of the economic system is not admissible to court as a witness. Okay? All right, my benaihu, so the Gemara is going to say what's the difference between them, meaning Rami Bar Chama and Rav Sheshet. Okay? And benaihu is Ika benaihu de Gemar Amnuta Achriti. When the person has another livelihood, then Rami Bar Chama and Sheshet would disagree. What would they disagree about? They would disagree about whether this guy, this dice player, can give testimony. If the guy's got a job, he's a doctor, lawyer, a custodian, a teacher, a mine worker, whatever he is, wagon driver, whatever he is, he's got a job. He works 6 days a week, he works 5 days a week, whatever it is, and every once in a while he goes out with his buddies and he plays dice. Okay? So for Rami Bar Chama, is he kosher as a witness? So Rabbi Bar Chama is the guy who says it's an asmachta. When you gamble, it's asmachta, and asmachta is not a legal deal, therefore you're a thief. Therefore you're not kosher.
Even though you're working another 5, 6 days.
Can I go into court and say I'm a good guy, I only rob banks on the weekend? Can I say I'm a good guy, I only eat treif on Saturday night?
So you're saying the guys from the show who all play poker Wednesday night would not be good witnesses?
If poker is an asmachta, right? If poker is an asmachta, and an asmachta is not a legitimate are two different variables. If the answer to the first one, poker is an asmachta, is yes, and second, an asmachta is not a legitimate deal, is no, then the person playing poker is not a legitimate witness, right? Which would be a problem since the rabbi plays poker,
But in that case,
right?
poker-
And every document I ever signed would be invalid.
But poker is a different issue because it could be skill to that.
I also play craps.
Well, I don't know.
It's legal in New Jersey. I've gone to New Jersey and I've gone and I've played craps.
But I'm just thinking of a poker game.
Yeah.
There's more to it than just probably throwing dice.
Okay, so we're going to get into that, because one of the things they're going to do in the next couple of paragraphs is they're going to try and come up, what's the difference between dice playing and pigeon flying? And is one a game of skill, and is the other not a game of
I
skill?
can see that now, yes, because this way you may know the heritage.
Right?
of-
This is why the people, when they first tried to make poker online legal in America, they were arguing with the federal government that poker is not a gambling game, since it is a game of skill between the players. And it's a skillful handling of the deal of the deck, and skillful handling of each other and recognizing each other. Because a really good poker player can win with any hand, because he recognizes what pattern of betting will elicit what response from each player at the table, and he waits for a moment where the pattern of betting is such that he can or she can make a bet that will drive people away from the pot, and then they win that hand, and it doesn't matter what they have. Right? So the skilled poker players are actually not playing the cards. They're playing the people. So that's not a game of chance. That's a game of psychological evaluation.
Or sports betting.
Sports betting is different because it's in human hands, but the bettor is not, like Pete Rose. Is Pete Rose ethical or unethical? He's betting on his own team
I thought it was ethical. I think
while he's the manager of the team.
Unethical.
If you've got $10,000 down on the game and you're behind and your best pitcher is one inning too late in the game, but he's still doing okay and he might get hurt if you pitch him another game. But if you've got no one else in the bullpen, you're going to leave your best pitcher in for that extra inning so you can get your $10,000. That's what gamblers do. So the idea of betting in his own sport and betting on his own game is a problem, ethically and morally. That's the kind of stuff that the Gemara is worried about. It's worried about somebody who is willing to take advantage of other people, and therefore, when his testimony causes people financial harm, is that the kind of person we want to trust to be putting people's hands in other people's pockets?
Inside traders is another wonderful.
This is the kind of guy who we know, this is the kind of guy who we know is willing to be unethical. Okay, let's move on. So Rav Sheshet and Rami would agree if the guy doesn't have another job. Rami would say it's an asmachta, and therefore he's not kosher. And Sheshet would say he doesn't have another job, he doesn't participate in the social wheel, therefore he's not kosher. Where they differ is where the dice player has a regular job. Rav Chami would still say he's not kosher because it's an asmachta and it's not kosher. Whereas Sheshet would say, he's got a job, lighten up, he's just playing dice. Okay? Now, Utnan, and we learned in a Mishnah, which by the way is our Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Ematai, in what case is the dice player not kosher? And he says, Bisman she'en lehen amunuta elahu, in a time when he doesn't have any other job. Aval yesh lehem amunut shalohu, and when he has any kind of a job, ksherim, they're kosher. Al matama matniti mishum yeshuvo shel olamhu. And the conclusion the Gemara draws is that our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda, when he says omanut, a trade, it's the same thing as Rav Sheshet when he says yeshuvo shel olam, working in the social wheel. Working in the social wheel for Rav Sheshet is the same thing as omanut, gainful employment, is for Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara is coming and saying that argument between Rami and Rav Sheshet actually is lining up with Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Remember, you have Mishnah is the highest trump card, and the Amoraim are the next generation of rabbis. Rami Bar Chama and Rav Sheshet are both Amoraim. They can't contradict a Tana. They're not allowed to do that. So now that we have Rami Bar Chama and Sheshet arguing with each other, sided with Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. Right? Who's in trouble?
The other guy.
Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama is in trouble because he has now said something against which Sheshet has beaten back, and Sheshet is saying the same thing as the Mishnah. So how can Rami Bar Chama be saying something against the Mishnah?
The way the Mishnah says misachek, doesn't that give an impression more of playing than work, like avoda or something? So or is it just the concept of play? You know what I'm saying? That's what with respect to the Mishnah.
I guess the problem is what you do with dice is play. I mean, that's the verb.
Yeah.
Does it indicate that it's not a serious profession? I guess so, except for the guy for whom it is.
Correct. I'm just saying that the terminology
Yeah.
I thought was.
All right, so now the next sentence is Kashya Rami Bar Chama. So it's a difficulty for Rami Bar Chama. That's what the Gemara says, because after all, it's Rav Sheshet who is equal to the Mishnah, so what are we going to do with Rami Bar Chama? So one of the things you can do with Rami Bar Chama is this. He's going to say Rabbi Yehuda was wrong. Now, there's no way for an Amora to say that a Tana in the Mishnah is wrong, unless what? The only way an Amora can say a Tana is wrong is if all the other Tanaim were against that Tana. So if it's Rabbi Yehuda against all of the Chachamim in the Mishnah, then Rabbi Yehuda doesn't get the halacha. He's wrong. So Rami Bar Chama would get to say he's wrong, because he's wrong. By the way, who would that be a problem for? That would now be a problem for Rav Sheshet, because Rav Sheshet agrees with Rabbi Yehuda. So if Rami Bar Chama can prove that Rabbi Yehuda is wrong, Sheshet's in trouble. See what we're doing?
And so if Rabbi Yehuda is wrong, that means that there are people who are disagreeing with him at the time the Talmud is being.
Correct. At the time the Mishnah is being
Mishnah
written.
written, so-
Yeah.
Can you give us on the board
Yeah.
maybe the concept of,
Okay. So you have a dice player.
does he work or not work?
Now, for Rabbi Yehuda,
Only job.
he's good if employed. He's not good, negative, if unemployed.
I have a question about unemployed.
Yeah.
What if it's someone who doesn't work but does a lot of volunteerism and whatever causes are important to them? So they're not getting money.
The full-time Hadassah volunteers would be considered scallywags and parasites on society in this
Oh,
view.
well, so much for that.
The same concept of independently wealthy and you inherit all your money.
No, but if you're doing something socially useful, it's,
Yeah, I know.
whatever.
See, I would have assumed with you, if you're doing something socially useful, even if you
You're
don't
turning,
get.
you're doing the wheel.
Okay, you can argue from the point of view of Rav Sheshet that the full-time volunteer who's sitting on an oil well and therefore isn't starving to death is able to be osek b'yishuvo sha'olam. That person is involved in the good functioning of the world. Okay,
That's what it is.
fine, that would be the Talmudic argument. But you asked me about Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda says omanut. And I don't think a volunteer is exhibiting an omanut, which is from the word oman, which is an artisan, right? So it's really somebody who makes stuff, somebody who does real things, right? Okay, Rabbi Yehuda, I know volunteering is a real thing. Don't get me in trouble. You have to do this when I'm being live streamed? Okay. Rami Bar Chama. So this is the Mishnah age, okay? Rami Bar Chama says negative always because it's an asamachta. Okay, that's that form of deal that never works. Rav Sheshet says positive if involved in the social wheel. By the way, that translation, which I enjoy so much, was original in the Philip Blackman translation of the Mishnah, and Neusner uses it sometimes too. And negative if not involved. And I'm just going to change it. It's the same word in society, like the good ordering of society, okay? But these two terms are equal. All right? So that's Rav Sheshet. So we identified that because this is a negative always and this is a negative here, Sheshet only disagree in that case. Okay?
Right.
Only in the case where he's involved in the social wheel. That's the only place they disagree. And we determined that Rav Sheshet and Rav Yehuda are equal. Okay? Which would mean Rabbi Bar Chama is not agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda in that same case. Okay?
The last thing you gave us, A is equal to B.
Yeah.
B is equal
Now
to
I give you the
C, A is
names.
equal to C.
Now you get the names. So Rabbi Bar Chama is not agreeing with these two, and these two are agreeing with each other. The Gemara has now come in and said, whoa, what's Rabbi Bar Chama going to do? And Rabbi Bar Chama is going to say, according to the Baraita, the first Baraita, that, well, let's read it. Okay? So, V'chi tema plige Rabbanan ale de Rabbi Yehuda, v'ha'amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, so it's not a Baraita, we're going to say it's Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, sorry, definitely not a Baraita, and you'll see in a little bit that's an important point. So, for Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, okay? So if you should say the rabbis are in a dispute with Rabbi Yehuda, so one way to save Rabbi Chama is to say that the Chachamim, the rabbis, contradicted Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda is wrong, and Rabbi Bar Chama does not need to care about Rabbi Yehuda. He could disagree because Rabbi Yehuda is wrong. The rabbis disagreed with him. Now, there's no text that tells us that.
This is not so. No.
So the Gemara is just saying v'chi tema. And if you were to say that Rabbi Bar Chama is okay because Rabbi Yehuda is contradicted by all the rabbis, well, then you've got a problem because Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi teaches us the following tradition. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Kol makom she'amar Rabbi Yehuda, every place where Rabbi Yehuda used the words ematai and vameh, meaning in what circumstance does the halacha apply, which is exactly what he says in our Mishnah, ematai. Eino ela lefaresh divarei chachamim. That every time he says ematai, ematai, meaning when, is Rabbi Yehuda equals the Chachamim. In other words, every time he says ematai about a halacha, it means Rabbi Yehuda is coming ela eno lefaresh divrei chachamim, to explain the words of the rabbis in support. Then it goes on, Rabbi Yochanan, who we don't really need to care about, comes in and says, Rabbi Yochanan amar ematai lefaresh uvameh lechalok. If he said ematai, it was to support the rabbis, but if he said uvameh, it's to dispute the rabbis. Nevertheless, Dechule alma ematai lefareshu. Everybody agrees that when Rabbi Yehuda says ematai, he's doing it in agreement with the rabbis. Okay. So if you were to say that Rabbi Bar Chama is okay because Rabbi Yehuda is contradicted by the rabbis, you can't say that because of the teaching of Rabbi Yoshua that says every time Rabbi Yehuda says ematai, he's agreeing with the rabbis, which is what we have here. So you can't say Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the rabbis. So you have to say Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the rabbis, which means Rabbi Yehuda gets the halacha, which means Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah is something that Rabbi Bar Chama cannot ignore. Rabbi Bar Chama is back on the hot seat. Okay?
I'm missing it, I'm sorry. I thought.
Rav Sheshet and Rabbi Chama disagree on this.
I thought the Chachamim disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda. but
No,
he said
no,
it was-
v'chi tema. If you were to say,
Oh.
in saving this guy,
Okay.
that Rabbi Yehuda must have disagreed with the rabbis,
Okay.
well, then you can't say that, because we know that Rabbi Yeshua has taught us that every time Rabbi Yehuda says ematai, he's agreeing with the rabbis. So you can't say that he disagrees with the rabbis. The Gemara comes in and says, if you're trying to save Rabbi Bar Chama, the best you're going to do is say Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the rabbis. But that argument is not available to you here, because here Rabbi Yehuda said the word ematai, and every time he says ematai, we know from Rabbi Yeshua he's agreeing with the rabbis. So you can't do that. You can't get Rabbi Bar Chama off the hot seat. He's still disagreeing with Rabbi Yehuda, and that's a problem. Okay? See the problem? Now, the next thing you need to know is that Rabbi Yeshua Okay, he's below the line. This is the line between the Tanaim and the Amoraim. Everyone below that line is an Amora. Okay? Now, Gavra a Gavra Ramet. So, this is, he said, right? He said, Gavra a Gavra, man on man. It's a guy against a guy. So you could say, if you wanted to say Rami Bar Chama is right, Ron, I'm going to pick up this again. So I'm going to say I don't accept Rabbi Yeshua. If I don't accept Rabbi Yeshua about Ematayim Bameh, that whole principle, I say I don't accept that. If I don't accept that, then Rabbi Yehuda still might be contradicting the rabbis. It's only because of Rabbi Yeshua that I say Rabbi Yehuda is okay. He might actually still be wrong. The rabbis might still be against him because Rabbi Yeshua might be wrong. Now, can I say Rabbi Yeshua is wrong? No, because I'm not an Amora. Who is an Amora? Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama could just tell Yehoshua, right? Neener, don't accept your principle. I'm an Amora, you're an Amora, I don't need to listen to you. So you could say this is just a guy against a guy. Rami Bar Chama doesn't accept this. Rav Sheshet doesn't accept a smachta. We didn't throw a fit. They're both Amoras having an argument about something. These two don't agree about Ematai. We're not going to throw a fit. And now Rami Bar Chama could be okay. So now let's see if that works.
Let's still 2 against 1.
Mar Savar Plige, Umar Savar Law Plige. All right, so one person maintains that the Yehuda and the sages disagree, Plige. One says that they're disagreeing, and the other says they're not disagreeing. All right, so Rami Bar Chama says they disagree, Rav Yeshua says they don't disagree, and that's how they have a fight. But the Gemara is not going to be happy with that. V'lo plige. No, indeed, they don't disagree. V'hatanya, and now we get a Baraita. Okay? So, this is the Mishnah. Okay? And let's do a big full stop here. And now I'm going to do a Baraita. What is a Baraita?
Left out.
A Baraita is a Mishnah age teaching with the same authority of the Mishnah that didn't make it into the Mishnah. Okay? So it has the same authority. So here's a Baraita. Bein sheyesh lo omanut shalohu, bein she'ein lo omanut alahu, hare ze pasul. Well, that makes it nice and easy. This Baraita says, negative if employed, and negative if unemployed. Well, that's a problem. Because I have a Baraita that now directly contradicts the Mishnah. Negative, negative, positive, negative. So, who is this? This Baraita is like Rami Bar Chama. So why didn't Rami Bar Chama just quote this Baraita? I don't know. Right? But anyways, the Gemara has now brought this Baraita to save Rami Bar Chama. But what are we going to do with this? Ha-hi Rabbi Yehuda mishum Rabbi Tarfon hi. So now the answer is going to be that in this Baraita, there's also a, in this Baraita, what do you have? This Baraita is a line in addition to the Rabbi Yehuda line. If you go to the source material on the Baraita, it quotes Rabbi Yehuda, who says when he has omanut, he's kosher, and when he doesn't have omanut, he's not kosher. And then there's a Baraita that continues with a chachamim omrim, the sages say, this guy and this guy are both not kosher. So that version of the Mishnah didn't make it into the Mishnah. That last line got dropped off. So why would you have had a vichi tema? Why would the Gemara have come and said, hey, what if you say they're arguing? Remember when they said that? We were like, where did they get that from? They just made that up? Like, if you want to save Rami Bar Chama by saying Rabbi Yehuda was contradicted by the sages, but you can't do that because of Rabbi Yoshua, where'd they get that from? Why would you say that? Because the sages aren't in the Mishnah. Now we know. There's another version of the Mishnah out there in a Baraita that has the sages come and contradict Rabbi Yehuda. In fact, that happened. Okay? But it didn't get included in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi dropped that line. Why did he drop that line? Because even if the Chachamim all felt that way, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is the one writing the Mishnah. And he felt this way. And so he wrote this as the halacha in the Mishnah, and he dropped that line. Because if he had included that line, it's Yehuda against the Chachamim, which the Chachamim by rule have to win. Chachamim against an individual always win.
How do I with statistics?
Okay? So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi in the Mishnah dropped this line. The Gemara is bringing it back and trying to find a way to save the Mishnah and everyone, even if this is real. Let's see how it does that. Okay? That's what it's doing. All right.
You are a commoner living at that time.
Yes.
And you're a farmer.
You're just a
shoemaker.
farmer who plays dice on the
No,
weekends.
you're just a farmer or a shoemaker. Did any, and you don't have a case in corpus, you don't have any money. Does any of this filter down to you?
Okay, so, hang on, guys. One question at a time. I'm sure whatever you're asking will be of use to the class as well, as is Stuart's of use to you. Hang on. There you go, hang on. Whatever it is, I'll help you within a second. Stuart's asking a question.
Filtered down economics now,
So Stuart wants to know, how relevant was this discussion to the common man? Like, would the common man have been aware of this at any point? I think the common man would have been extremely aware of this particular halacha because dice playing was common. We find it in the archaeology of every single major street during Roman occupation, that there's carvings on the pavements of dice games. And in some cases, we've even found the dice. And therefore, people would have used this in their court cases. This is dinei mamonot. This is money stuff. So everybody was suing each other about money all the time, and if you could get his witness out because you saw him playing dice, that's an easy one, right? So I think this particular halakha, people would have known. This one mattered. Some of the others, maybe not as much, but this one mattered. This is a very common case. That's why I can make a joke about playing poker, because half of the synagogue is playing poker at some point in their life. Right? The other question is going to be, how often do you have to play poker to be not kosher? Once? Twice? Within the last year? Since Yom Kippur? Can you do tshuva for it? Right? How do you restore your reputation? All this is going to be in the pages in front of us. Okay? All right, so let's see what happens. When last we did, you, by the way, Ron, asked me to put this on the board. Was that helpful?
Yes, no, it does.
Because there's a lot on the board now.
Yeah, I think it does.
Definitely helps
No,
me
I
to
think
see
it
it.
helps
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a question.
No, I was just saying, how we knew it was a Braita, is it say Braita somewhere?
It does, because it says Hatanya.
Oh, I
So the word Hatanya means and but it is taught. And Tanya, that verb, is only used for Baraita and Mishnah age sources. It's related to the word Tana. The Tanaim, their teachings is a Tanya. It's not. It means to teach. It's an Aramaic word, and if you change to change Aramaic words to Hebrew, you change a taf to a shin. Hashanya, hashanim, to teach, lishanot, mishnah, right? Lishanot is to teach. All right, so Tanya means it is taught. It is taught in a Tanaitic source. All right? Okay, here we go. So, Hahi, this Baraita, which includes Rabbi Yehuda saying plus, minus, yes, no, depending on employment, and that Baraita, which ends with Chachamim blasting him out of the case and saying it doesn't matter if he's employed, it's not allowed, he's not kosher. What's the answer? The only way to save Rabbi Yehuda now is to say it's not really Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Tarfon here. Oh, and no. In that Baraita, Rabbi Yehuda was quoting Rabbi Tarfon. You don't know what Rabbi Yehuda thought in that Baraita. So now you're going to say that the Baraita, even though it looks like the exact same case, is not the same case, and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi chopped off the final line to get his way in the Mishnah, but the Baraita is actually a different case, with the same people saying the same things, but the addition of Chachamim, and that the Rabbi Yehuda in this Baraita is not speaking for himself, he's quoting Rabbi Tarfon. And in whatever this new case is, which is not dice playing, Rabbi Tarfon believes in employment and non-employment. And maybe Rabbi Yehuda did or didn't believe in that. But in our case, where Rabbi Yehuda said this, the Chachamim never objected. That's why it's not in the Mishnah. Because in our case, the Chachamim don't object. In our case, it's actually Rabbi Yehuda. In that case where the Chachamim objected, it was a different case, and Rabbi Yehuda was quoting Rabbi Tarfon. It wasn't Rabbi Yehuda. Different case, different people, different outcome. Okay, so that's what it's going to say. Ha hi Rabbi Yehuda mishum Rabbi Tarfon hi. That's Rabbi Tarfon. And what was the context? Rabbi Yehuda omer mishum Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Tarfon, Leolan ein echad mehem nazir. It was a case of a nazir. In fact, neither of them is a nazir. Lefi shalom nitna nazirut ela lahafla'ah. He wasn't really a kosher nazir, a Nazirite. Remember the Nazirite oath in the Torah is the person who doesn't drink wine, doesn't have sex, doesn't cut their hair for a period of time, and then when their oath is fulfilled, the age of their oath is fulfilled, they cut their hair and bathe, and they bring a sacrifice and they fulfill their vow. And for this, presumably, they're getting some form of blessing from God. So the question is, there's some circumstance where they're trying to say, was this a kosher Nazir or not a kosher Nazir? And there's two different cases. Maybe it's like the employed and the unemployed person in our case. There's two different cases. And one of them people are saying is a kosher Nazir, and one of them's not a kosher Nazir. Someone is saying they're both kosher Nazirs, and someone's saying neither of them's a kosher Nazir. And it's Rabbi Yehuda quoting Rabbi Tarfon, and the Chachamim come in and they say they don't like it. That's what's happening behind the Baraita that they're kind of almost quoting here.
The Nazirim here are dice players.
No. Yeah, the analogy. The analogy, yeah. We're talking about a dice player, and they're talking about a Nazir. Okay, so that's what makes the case different. So, le'olam ein echad mehem nazir, lefi shelo nitna nazirut ela lahafla'ah. The Nazir was not given, the Nazir, he wasn't made, the laws of Nazirut are not given to us except by clear utterance, which gives no doubt. In other words, the difference there, the hafla'ah, is that it was made completely public by the word of God. So you don't have a doubtful Nazir. You can't have somebody who's like similar enough to a Nazir that he winds up being a Nazir. The Nazir is clear what a Nazir is because it's in the Torah. Is the dice player in the Torah? No. Is what makes a kosher witness in the Torah? No. So you can't make an analogy to the Nazir case where Rabbi Yehuda quoted Rabbi Tarfon to say something and the Chachamim said no, because the strength of the halakha involved is different. They're dealing with something that is clearly stated in the Torah, which makes people behave one way when they rule from the court, right? As opposed to the stuff where we're kind of a half a step off and we're trying to get it right, we might have more flexibility. People might rule differently. You can't make an analogy, okay? And there they drop it, okay? And the solution is that's a different case. Okay, so at the end of this section, then, what we tried to say was we tried to save Rami Bar Chama by saying that Rabbi Yehuda and the sages were in conflict. But the Baraita, which has the sages overruling Rabbi Yehuda, is actually eliminated because it's established that the Baraita with the sages overruling Rabbi Yehuda is in a different case at a different time, and is not analogous to our case. So, that means, what? Are the rabbis in contradiction with Rabbi Yehuda?
No.
No. Is Rabbi Yoshua correct? Ematai. He's in keeping with the rabbis. Presumably, yes. Can with Rabbi Yoshua? About Imatai? Sure. Can he disagree with them about Rabbi Yehuda agreeing with the sages? Hasn't been proven. This case that came to show the sages overruled Rabbi Yehuda didn't prove the case. It got thrown out. He could still claim that the sages overrule Rabbi Yehuda, but he has no evidence for it, as opposed to the clear statement of the Mishnah and the principle of Rabbi Yeshua, which seems to indicate that Rabbi Yehuda is actually getting the halacha here. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wins, he writes the Mishnah this way, and it holds up under cross-examination. Who's the happiest guy on the board? This guy. Because his phrase of Yishuvo Shel Olam is matched to Rabbi Yehuda's employment, and all subsequent discussion of this Mishnah will use the language of Rabbi Sheshet. For the next 1,000 years, every discussion of this halacha uses the language of Rabbi Sheshet. Rav Sheshet. Okay? All right? So at the end of the day, that's what's left. Okay? Everything else has been discarded and overruled.
So we took the long path.
It's called Talmud.
So I have a question, Rabbi.
Yes.
So, just to make sure I'm getting the upshot right.
Yep.
There are some rabbis that disagreed with Rabbi Yehuda, but somehow it came out on top anyway?
Rabbi Yehuda, when he quoted Rabbi Tarfon about the Nazir, was overruled by the rabbis. When Rabbi Yehuda spoke about the dice player here, the rabbis said nothing.
Just because they said nothing, so then Rabbi Sheshet, who agreed with them, that's the reason why the two of them are continuing. Okay, got it, thank you.
Okay? That's the Talmud's understanding of what did and did not happen.
So
Now,
they say nothing, that's taking this tacit agreement.
Shtika kahodaya dame, silence implies assent. Okay? If you're standing next to somebody and they call somebody else something horrific and you don't say anything, can the victim presume that you're in on it? Absolutely. We teach all of our kids the way we stop bullying is you need to speak up. If you don't speak up, then every silent person in that room is part of the bully. Right? Okay. Next. 6 minutes. That was the hardest one. Typically what happens in Talmud when you're organizing a section of the commentary on the Mishnah is you take your most elaborate thing and you deal with it first because it's going to bring up the most issues. Then you're going to work your way through the rest of the Mishnah very quickly. So our Mishnah had a number of cases. It had a dice player, it had loans at interest, it had the pigeon flyer, it had the shvi'it seller, right? It had those 4 cases. So we just dealt with the dice player. Now we're going to deal with the loans at interest.
But this is establishing that a smachta doesn't matter.
We did not prove.
Because they're both.
Okay, if you want to go back to the asmachta question at the
No,
beginning.
it could be like this. In other words, they say a smachta doesn't matter.
Okay, Rami Bar Chama said it's no good because it's an asmachta.
Yeah,
Rav Sheshet said it can be good this way or this way. So Rav Sheshet is saying one of 2 things and we don't know which. Either he's saying that this is not a smachta, but he might still hate a smachta. Right? Sheshet might say, this is not an asmachta. Therefore, I get to use this principle. Sheshet would say, if it were an asmachta, of course it would be forbidden, but this is not an asmachta.
the dice player is not a smachta.
Or Sheshet might be saying, I don't care about asmachta. Asmachta smamachta. A fet on your smachta. Right? He might not hold that asmachta is forbidden. He might think you can have an asmachta, you can have 20 asmachtas in a deal. And as long as all the conditions are fulfilled, it's a kosher deal. I don't know if Rav Sheshet says this is only kosher because it's not an asmachta, or if Rav Sheshet says this, it doesn't matter if it's an asmachta, it's still kosher. I don't know which one of those things is Rav Sheshet because they didn't go into it. All I know is Rabbi Bar Chama said it's an asmachta, and Rav Sheshet. know which reason is why he thinks it's a kosher regarding a smachta. You get it? So that's why when you said what you said, I had to say, not really. Okay? I still don't know what Rav Sheshet thinks about a smachta. I don't know. Okay, here we go. The next disqualification mentioned in the Mishnah is malve beribit, the usurer. Or as we say, onto our usurer suspects.
The loan shark.
Yes, Amar Rava. Rava is one of the great rabbis of the Babylonian academies. He is an Amora par excellence. So you got to listen when Rava talks. He was like the president of Harvard University for Jews in Babylonia. That's basically who he is. There's also a Yale, by the way. There's Sur and Pumbedita. So there's a Harvard and a Yale, and there's a Rav of each. Rav and Shmuel are the two who are well known. Anyways, here's Rava. He's a late guy. Love beribit pasula edut. A borrower at interest is disqualified from testimony. Stop. Full stop. Freeze. What's the problem? What did the Mishnah say? Is that what the Mishnah said?
Well, it says later that one who lends is not qualified.
Yes, the Mishnah said the lender is not kosher, and Rava came in and said the borrower is not kosher.
That doesn't make sense.
Takes two to tango.
Well, it's true, you have to have both parties agree. So the question is, does the borrower understand the real conditions? And that's what it's about.
I could be a real nudnik. What is forbidden? Loaning at interest or paying interest? If I loan to you at interest and I never collect the interest, have I sinned?
Yes, because it's still,
No, nothing happened.
nothing happened, but you're still requesting it.
I don't know. To me, you,
If I loan to you straight and you pay me back in interest, have I sinned?
If it's your choice to
Yes.
do so, but it wasn't required of you.
You see how messy I'm making this? You see how fast this gets messy?
yeah,
Okay? So Rava comes in and says, remember the Chachamim? Doesn't matter if he's employed, they're all not kosher. Rava is coming in with a sweeping, they're both not kosher. I don't think he's arguing about the Malve, because he's Rava, he can't argue with the Mishnah. Of course the Malve, the loaner, is not kosher. He's saying the borrower is also not kosher, even though that's not in the Mishnah. Okay?
How does he get away with it?
Well, there's going to be some discussion about that. And we're going to get into it in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
I am off the next 2 Mondays. So we will see you on Monday the 6th or whatever that is.
Next year.
I will see you next year.
Thank you.
All right? A lot of fun. Thank you.